G'day guys, welcome back to SuperCoach with DR and welcome to the round 10 review. Probably the most frustrating round of football for me in a while. Brisbane kick like my under 10 side. High ownership players like Seagull and Whitfield continue to destroy me. And I've got so many players that are just underperforming. It's a story of my last 3 weeks. Slowly but surely, the overall ranking has gone on a downwards trend. And after hoping to be around the 2,000 overall mark at this stage, I find myself just hanging on to a top 6k rank. Chris Scott, he can go and get stuffed. Low time on ground for my new additions in Duncan and Stewart. And he basically chained Danger to the goal square and he didn't get near it. Finally, he decided to get Danger in the middle and he gets 20 points within about a 3-minute period. So, very frustrating match to watch for me personally. But low time on ground for our stars is something that I think we may have to get used to with the condensed fixtures. And quickly, thanks again for all the support. Working towards 1,000 subs now, which is awesome. And the stock market video will be out at some stage today. As you can see, got 233k in the bank, which is handy. For my trades, I did want to keep on to Stars until the end of the year, but decided to move him on and keep McPherson and Noble. I did this before I knew that McPherson was not going to be playing, which was a little bit frustrating. Noble was on the chopping block, but after his 100 plus score, it obviously made more sense to keep him. Stewart came in, Dev Smith got booted, and Mitch Duncan replaced him. And obviously, the week that I finally trade Smith, he goes 100 plus. Story of my season so far. Big Sammy Draper came in at the expense of Naismith. I was waiting for the opportune moment to get a decent R3 in, and that worked out really well. Made 170k from that trade also. I really did pencil in this week as a double upgrade, as the two Geelong boys have been on my watch list for a very long time and were too good to pass up. So, in order to prepare for this week, I had to cop some short-term pain, not field as many premiums as some other sides that made their way into the top 5k in the last few weeks. But hopefully, I can catch up a little bit. I'm looking forward to this week because I don't have a single GWS player and I've only got Ling from the Swans, which is basically a donut anyway, isn't it? So, hopefully I can make up some points there as the big four in Seagull, Haynes, Kelly and Whitfield, as I said before, have been absolutely killing me. So let's have a look at how the team actually went. Ridley, another 100 plus score. Can't give any great commentary on the game because I only watched under a quarter of it, but 100 plus and I'm happy. Tom Stewart made his debut for the Rusty Spoons and was pretty disappointing. My 8-year-old son, who's also got his own little Supercoach team and I think did better than me this week, got players like Link McCarthy, for example, in his forward line that scored 100 plus. Wouldn't believe it, but yeah, he was less than impressed with Stewart. He was calling him Tom Pruitt, as 8-year-olds do. But look, Stewart had low time on ground for his usual standards. We saw what he can do last week when he's on his game, and I'm still very happy I managed to get him in. In good news for non-owners, he still represents great value even this week. Duday had me worried when he was only on 22 at half time, but then came out with a 65 point plus second half, which was a little bit of a relief, or a big relief. I fielded Noble after his 100 plus last week, so of course he goes back down to his 64. McPherson didn't play, which stuffed up my 3-week plan slightly due to lower cash gen than first expected this week. And this guy did nothing. I find it hard to believe that someone who played over 70% time on ground could get a score of 11. 6 disposals, 3 effective, and the definition of an absolute nothing pick. Looking like a very bad mistake selecting him over Toby Watson, unfortunately. Sis and Doc obviously had the bye and will be very much welcome back into the side this week. Lachie Neale, my captain for the week, and certainly didn't disappoint. Had a huge start to the game. If he converted his early set shot, that could have been a 60 point plus first quarter. Was very cheap last week, but now starting to rise again and becoming harder and harder to trade in for non-owners. He has to be winning the Brownlow at this stage and pretty much a must-have in your midfield with a consistent 140 plus scores that he produces. Jack McRae had the VC on him and was looking like a good move at half time, but a very quiet second half, as did most of the Dogs, and a quiet second quarter. Ended up with a 117, got plenty of the ball though, certainly not a terrible score, but not VC material. And while I'm talking about the Doggies, it was great to see Josh Dunkley back, and he should be someone to keep an eye on as well. I'm a massive fan of Dunks, as you probably would have heard if you followed me during the preseason. As I said, look, it's amazing what Danger can do when he actually plays in the middle of the ground. Attended his first CBA in the last quarter, had an immediate impact. Even when he was forward, he missed a few marks, and I don't know, for me it seems like he almost tries a little too hard to make relatively simple marks turn into, those spectacular type of marks by throwing his whole body at the ball. I don't know if it's just me that's observing that, and they are really tough marks. He needs to put everything into it, but yeah, for me, it looks like he's just trying a little bit too hard to make them spectacular, those marks. And another thing is that, what's his name? Brian Myers, I think it was, the bloke with the dreadies down there, said that Danger was a very angry and grumpy man when he was playing in the forward line. So I'm hoping that he returns to midfield this week. Mitch Duncan, well, newest recruit, wasn't too disappointed with him, but look, it was his lowest score that wasn't injury affected for the year, but he still went over 100 plus just, which was okay for me. Viney played like a madman in the first 8 minutes of the game, an absolute wrecking ball. I thought another 190 could have been on the cards, but Piggy took care of that and went even better to grab a 200 plus. Viney was on 50 points after the first quarter, but only found himself on 77 points at three-quarter time. And look, I was watching the game very closely and was a bit flabbergasted that he was only rewarded with 27 points for the second and third quarters. And I swear that a couple of his possessions got missed. Again, it may have just been me with my bias, but yeah, really surprised that he scored that poorly in the next two quarters. But he did hit back in the last with a beautiful right foot snap that he'd usually kick probably 2 out of 10 times if he's lucky. But that ensured that he hit the 100 plus. Simpson, really solid game from him. Could have been a 90 plus score if it wasn't for the fact that he spent a large chunk of the fourth quarter off the ground receiving some stitches under the eye. Buderick, well, he did what we expected him to do with a 50 odd. Bennell barely sided apart from a nice snap, which was pretty much a gift anyway. Couldn't get into the game or make an impact. I'm hoping he may get a reprieve next week, given the fact that the D's had such a big win. Won't be making as much short-term cash as I'd planned, which is disappointing. He's someone that is in and out of my trade plans, and I'll go through my trade plans in a minute, but I'm all over the shop with those at the moment. Got so many different ideas about what I can do. Cripper, well, he was on the pine. Brad Close had a quiet game. First time he hasn't hit the scoreboard, so we'll probably have to rely on kicking at least one goal a game to ensure that he goes about the 50 range. I love seeing the long sleeves, though. Always been a big fan of the long sleeves for some reason. I used to go with the long sleeves during my playing days. I actually found my old number 10 jumper I wore in the winning, 99 grand final, I think, the other day, still covered with dirt and mud, and yeah, brought back some awesome memories. But enough about the long sleeves. Trent Rivers, well, yeah, he's pretty much dead, isn't he? It'd be lovely if he could get another couple of games, but yeah, just not sure if that'll happen. I do apologise for trading him, maxing and breaking him, guys. Did give me a lovely 150 plus in his first week in my team when I had the captaincy on him, and then delivered some really average scores for his standards. He's not 100%, he's obviously carrying some niggles, and therefore it's hard to expect him to produce these massive scores, but I paid up for him, and yeah, it was the right move at the time because I had to get Pitt and A out, but just super disappointing that he's dropping these lower scores all of a sudden. Grundy, he reminded us that he's still a captaincy option with a nice 140 plus. And Sammy Draper brought him into the side this week, came in, scored a 75, which will give me some nice cash gen as well as some nice cover. In the forward line, Track, it was a little bit quiet to start off, but he went 130 plus, had the most score involvements by any Melbourne player. He's got the potential to win a Brownlow one day, this bloke. We're seeing the best of him this year, and I'll seriously consider starting him as a midfielder next year if he continues to grow and develop like he has this season. Arguably my best starting pick for the season for the original price that I paid, and the average he's produced this season is fantastic. Almost 120, absolutely wrapped with a Petrarca pick. Dusty, another 100 plus from him. He's in ripping form at the moment. Didn't have a massive impact, but he did what he needed to do. A couple of sublime kicks also. Rising in price again, which is nice for non-owners. Tough to get in though if you haven't got him, which is a little bit frustrating because I know some people that did trade him out and are now spewing about that, looking to get him back in. Baz, he was okay without setting the world on fire. Shin through a point at a crucial stage, so if that goes through for a goal, he reaches a ton. Look, I'd like to see him develop more strength, as I noticed that a few of his tackles didn't quite stick, and I think that, in the next year or two, spends a little bit more time in the gym, he'll be able to complete those tackles and actually stick those tackles. But an okay game from him, almost hit the 90, and he's also very fun to watch. Simpkin finally hit some form, which was long overdue. I was really losing the faith, but one of the best Roos players on the weekend. This bloke is an absolute bargain at the moment, so you can complete your forward line with him. Rankin returns some form, but remember the role he plays, it isn't really super coach friendly, so he'll be a little bit up and down. Jake Arts, after a couple of low scores, he's really hit form last couple of weeks. I said, I think 3 weeks ago, that he just needs to take his chances, and he did that. He had around 10 score involvements, packed on the pressure, and in my opinion, has legitimately made his way into their best 22. So, a big impact with a fairly low possession count. I'm really happy with the 87. Low break even this week, and I think that he now gets to about the 300k mark. That would be brilliant and allow me to move him on to allow for one of my last upgrades. Brayshaw obviously had the bye. I missed his consistent 100 plus score, and I'm hoping that Sturt gets back into the team because he still has money to make. I think his break even's around the low 30s. So, my trades for this week, I'll admit, as I said before, I'm all over the place. I've got a range of different options up my sleeve. My original plan was to get Titch this week, as you had the bye, and possibly a Haynes or a Williams next week after their bye. Still something I'll definitely consider, but I'm also looking to try to get to full primo ASAP. So I've found a way that I can actually double upgrade this week, but it's probably focusing on quantity rather than quality, which is something I'm not wrapped about. I did tweet out on the weekend that I think that we need to look for quality, so I'm almost going against that thought. But look, I've got to be realistic with my trading targets compared to the amount of trades that I have, money in the bank, and potential cash gens. So the advantage to the trade I'm thinking of is that I'll get 2 primos on field, but in order to do that, I'll have to cull rookies, which I don't necessarily want to do. So still an idea at this stage, but this is what I'm looking at. So I think probably the most sensible trade for this week would be the one I'm looking at here. So out would go Noble, Bennell, and Sturt. In would come Scholl, Schoenberg, and Titch. So what I'm doing there is I'm getting obviously 2 rookies in that I think performed really admirably on the weekend. Getting Titch in is one of those uber primos that's underpriced at the moment. Low break even, has already had his buy. I'm getting Bennell out, who I don't think's got a heap more money to make. Didn't excite me whatsoever over the weekend. Sturt, he may come back in. He's got a break even of about 33, I think. So still money to make, but isn't doing much for me. And Noble, I think, will go out either way. He could probably hover around that price, but I think I'll need to look to move him on whichever way I go with the trade. So that's probably the most sensible one, and I'm focusing on getting some quality in Titch. And then the idea next week would either be to get one of Zach Williams in the back line. Whitfield could either be in the midfield or up forward. I'm even happy to complete my midfield with someone like a Whitfield, or the other one could be Hugh Greenwood. So that would be the 3 options that I'd be looking to bring in next week, and I could probably afford to go one up, one down to do that. Or the other trade that I'm thinking of, and this is probably the riskier one, focusing more on quantity rather than quality. Out would go Noble, Simpson, and Rankin. In would come Rory Laird, Luke Shuey, and Schoenberg. So 2 up, 1 down. The issue I've got here is that I'm not too keen to get rid of Simpson this early. Rankin I'd like to keep on to for probably another week. Laird, I'm not overly sold on, but I did message Supercoach George over the weekend. Shout out to George. If you're not following him, please do. Got a terrific channel there. Probably, in my opinion, the best Supercoach YouTube channel that's out there. So please, follow him. But he's a keen Adelaide supporter, so I did message him about Rory Laird and just ask him, what do you think about his chances of continuing to play in the midfield? Because I really like him in the midfield, getting some clearances, some contested possessions, which is awesome. And he said, look, I'm not the coach, obviously, but, if it was me, he's playing really well there, he's hit some form, I'd be leaving him there. Because I was a little bit worried about what happens when Crouch comes in. So, look, it's a bit of an educated guess. It's a gamble. But I'm hoping that if he continues with his midfield time, Rory Laird, he'll be going 100 plus. And I think, probably at worst, we'll be looking at 85 to 90 for him. So I'm looking to bring him in possibly. But again, I would miss out on a Seagull, Haynes, Zach Williams type after their buys. And it probably would make sense to look for some quality after their buys in one of those blokes. Shuey, another huge risk here. But if you look at it, if you take that injury affected score out of his system, he's averaging close to 110, I think. So Very underpriced at the moment, but he hasn't got a great draw coming up. I think he's got Kerno that's going to tag him. A couple of weeks after that, he does play GWS, and he could cop the De Boer tag. I don't know if he'll be right by then. I hope not, if I do get Shuey in. Look, do they tag Shuey? Do they tag Kelly? Do they go to Gaff? There's a few different options there, so it's not guaranteed that he'll get the tag, but yeah, according to West Coast supporters, they probably rate him as their best midfielder. So depending on what the opposition team do, yeah, will really determine how well Luke Shuey scores, I think. But here's a pod. He's either in 1 to 3% of sides at the moment. I know going this way, it's a huge gamble. And as I said, I'm not really going with quality. I know someone like Spills at the moment is looking to get a Seagull, Jack Steele, Whitfield type in. So he's focusing on that real quality, that real higher end sort of stuff. And I probably think that should be the way to go also. But with me here, with this option, I am completing my team sooner rather than later. And I may even have a luxury trade up my sleeve to be able to then even go maybe a Duday up to a Seagull type if I'm lucky. So yeah, I'm tossing and turning between the two sort of ways of going about this at the moment. And there's other players I'm thinking of as well. You know, Taylor Adams was another pod coming up against Adelaide this week, but he's got a high break even. He's someone that if I do possibly go with this trade, I'll just, yeah, maybe just all out risk it and maybe even get an Adams in next week because I think he'll be cheap. But again, look at the blokes I'm getting in, Shuey and Adams, with these short turnarounds and their injury history. It's probably such a terrible idea. But at the moment, you know, if I try to do something in regards to my overall rank, I've got to do something different, you know, and look for some of these pods, some of these risky pods. And hey, Adams could get injured, Shuey could injure himself again, and I've probably shot myself in the foot there. But I do need to try something different, think outside the box a little bit, and try to get some pods in. But yeah, ideally, I'd like to go safe, which is this option here. So let me know what you guys think. I'm still tossing and turning. If you've got any other plays you think I should be looking at, yeah, please give me some help. I need help this week. I'm really struggling. But look, that's all for me for the review for this week, guys. I will be out very soon with the stock market video. I think the first game's at 4 something today, isn't it? It's almost 12 o'clock now, so I will get onto that ASAP, upload this one, and get straight onto the stock market video. So hope your week goes well, guys, and I'll see you again soon with the stocky. Take care. See you guys. Bye.